Everything was blossoming. Like we saw like all of the leaves come out and all of the flowers come out, and we went right through like this really warm summer as well, and which is very different to this lockdown, which is wet, and the only time I feel like you've got to breathe this fresh air is when you've got a mask on going to the supermarket. And then when you do go for a walk, you're just inhaling a storm like every day. The first announcement was that we weren't allowed to leave our bedrooms, and I was in a box room at my mum's house. After the first week, like I really wanted to push myself to be creative every single week, to release something, whether it was just a photograph or whatever. And I really wanted to do that, and that's, like I pushed myself so much to create something. And I knew that I was finding the sun to be this help. I found a lot of peace in it, and obviously in that first lockdown it was very sunny and very warm. And I was just spending a couple of days just capturing the way that the light hit my house, and it just felt right doing that. And it was really difficult to sort of find that creativity and make something out of light hitting my house, basically. I didn't want it to be this really personal encounter of what I was going through. I don't think I was fully ready to open up about what I was going through either. And I wanted people to connect and see that it was difficult, and they could see that from the news reports that I put over it.
Now more than 450,000 recorded cases of the virus globally.
I must give the British people a very simple instruction. You must stay at home.
They would take away their own sort of account from that film. I remember really wanting to make a second part to the first one, and I wanted it to be a more personal encounter, more what people could relate to and feel like they weren't alone. But I didn't want to invade on what people had gone through at the same time. I wanted to make sure that people were comfortable with what they were saying. And I think dealing with a lot mentally myself, like it was difficult to hear what people were saying and what they'd gone through. And I remember doing these Zoom calls, and like they were telling their story and I was crying, and I was like, this, even though it's so different to what I'd experienced, I was like, I feel like I understand. And it was so strange. And I remember being like, this needs to be out, like people need to realise they're not alone. We've all gone through very different experiences of this, and we're all grieving for our past lives and our past world, essentially.
Because we lost a family member that we all really cherished. We knew going into it that we wouldn't be allowed to kind of express that grief. We couldn't console each other in the ways that we learnt that work, or the ways we know how to make each other feel good. You have to kind of like look at them from a distance with a mask on and kind of like give them like the eye contact, like it means that you care.
Sun is my biggest, like it clears my mind straight away, and I really wanted to put that as a metaphor in my films. In that first film, it was as if like you can see just with the way that the sun would come into my house and the way that you would see that and the glow that it would create. And in that first film, it was like no matter what shape that was being reflected in or anything, that was the piece of happiness that I had through that day. I could have this terrible day, and then there might be this stripe of sunlight, and that would reflect on the bit of happiness that I had. And then by the second film, there was a lot less of that. And in the bits that there was sunlight, like I was in it, I was really basking in it, because I really wanted that sense of relief and that moment of peace. And that's why in the first film, there's not a lot of a lot of the people in it are shadows and you don't really see much, but by that second film, there's a shot of me like with my arms up over the windowsill. And at that point, like I was stood on a computer chair with my head sticking out of a skylight, because I needed that sunlight. And it wasn't just for this shot in the film, it was because I wanted that. Like I needed to feel that on my skin and on my face and feel that sense of relief and that bit of hope. Like I'd laugh about it afterwards with my mum or whoever, because I would go out on a walk and just walk and walk and walk, and then at one point be like, oh, I should probably turn around now. and I would turn around and then I'd have done 14 miles. And it was so good for my mental health. And I was just taking these pictures and I got them all developed and just thought, why not just put them out there, and maybe they'll help somebody else, and maybe they'll look at this place that we're in and that there is so much beauty and we can still do this even though we're in a lockdown. We can still go for walks, even though it's winter and it is a bit horrible. There's a lot of nice things to see as well. So I just got these photos back and put together a zine, put a thing out on Instagram and asked if people would be interested in buying one. And within 2 days, the pre-orders had sold out. And I was a bit really taken back by it, because I just didn't expect people to be that bothered with what everyone's going through. And we're in the middle of winter, and the last thing I thought is somebody's going to want to buy a book with pictures of winter. I wouldn't. So I was like, why would somebody else want to do that? But it was really overwhelming and so great as well. So that was just nice to have released the lockdown film and then 2 weeks later to release this zine, and both of them do really well. And it just made me feel like I did have that motivation, I did feel really creative, and I could do this.